Different day, same shirt, but I promise it's been washed. Hi again, thanks for stopping by and spending time with me today. Today I'm going to show you how I dye a variety of trims. We're going to dye with the seam binding, some rickrack, and just some cotton twine. But before I get into the products that I'm going to use, I will show you how I use the trim once I dye it. And here's some that I've already dyed. But obviously the main focus that I use on is when I do my fully finished items, like I have used the black trim here on the All Hallows Eve pillow. Okay, so that's one way that I use the trim. The other way is I use it in my Midori Traveler's Notebook, and I tie the seam binding onto one of these little clips, and you can add a little charm, and I just use it to keep my place for that. I also use them once I finish my inserts, just to hold the inserts together for when I put it on my storage shelf, because I add things into my inserts that aren't necessarily all taped in, and I don't want them to fall out as I'm pulling them off the shelf. So there's a variety of other ways you can use these trims, but those are just a few ideas. So the products that I'm going to be using today, like I said, just the trims, but I wanted to tell you where I got my seam binding from. I ordered mine off of eBay a couple of years ago. I think this company still has the eBay store, but they also have a website, and it's called zipperstop.com, zipperstop.com, and it's just a rayon seam binding in the white, and you get quite a lot on, does it say 100 yards? So, and I think it was just maybe like under $5 or something like that. You can also use bias tape that you can buy in Joann's or any fabric store. And again, just the rickrack. I prefer cotton rickrack, but it is very difficult to find nowadays. So you can still dye the polyester blend, and then just any type of basic off-white twine that you can pick up just about anywhere, hardware store, Walmart, probably even Michael's or Hobby Lobby. What I'm going to be using to do the actual dyeing, though, will be a variety of Tim Holtz Distress ink in the re-inkers. Okay, if you have just the ink pad, you can do it that way. It's a little bit more difficult, but you can just open the ink pad, lay the seam binding across it, hold your finger on the seam binding as you pull it across the ink pad. But like I said, it's a lot messier, I think, and the results aren't quite as nice as you get with the actual re-inkers. And these can be picked up at many different craft stores. They're available online, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, all kinds of places like that. The other thing that I'm going to try for the first time on the seam binding, I've used this in my mixed media and scrapbooking before, but I've never done it on the seam binding, are the Dylusions spray inks. And we'll experiment together and see what happens. The other things that you will need for this obviously you want to cover your surface well, and you want to have some plastic gloves because these definitely will stain your hands, and anything it gets on, it will stain. I like to have an old towel. Actually, this is an old t-shirt of my son's that I use. Baby wipes. Also, I just use a variety of found trays at the thrift store. You know, I like to be thrifty. I like to find things and repurpose them. And so I just, every time I'm in the thrift store, I look for little trays type things. And I think that's about it. I think that's pretty much all we're gonna need as we go along. So let me switch the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and we'll get right to it. Okay, so the other thing that I forgot to mention is you definitely want to wear old clothing that you don't mind if you get some of the ink on it, because it may eventually wash out, but it will take a good long while. So the first thing I think we're going to attempt to dye will be some of the seam binding, and I just pull off a nice piece, give it a snip, and I'm going to do a few of these. Sorry, I should have had this prepared ahead of time and I didn't. Okay, we'll start with that. And I like to give my inks just a little shake. They may have been sitting for a while, so that doesn't hurt anything. And I'm gonna have my old cookie sheet here handy. I've got some baking paper, parchment paper, wax paper will work. You really want something though that's not gonna absorb the ink out of the seam binding or the rickrack. So you want something that has like a coated surface. So you could just put regular paper there or paper towels, but keep in mind that that's going to absorb some of the ink from what you're dyeing. So let's try a different one first. Let's go with, this one's called Peeled Paint. And I just take some up into the dropper and I spread it across like this. And then you kind of let the fun begin and start playing. Hopefully you guys can see this. I just take it and I hold it like this, and to start off I just set the edge down in and I let it wick up some of the color, okay? And I just go along, and I don't necessarily do it along the entire strip of it. I leave some space. I may flip it over and do the other edge. You can also put these inks into a little sprayer and spray them onto your trims that way. If you want maybe a lighter color, you can add water to it. Okay, so this is what we look like at the moment. Not anything spectacular. And with these, it's just like anything that you're doing with a dye. It's unpredictable. You may never get the same result twice. So now I'm just going to take some water in a mister, and I'm going to start misting. I'm going to let it just go how it wants. All right, and you can see how the water is making it wick into other areas of the ribbon. Can you see that? So you have a variegated look. That's the look we're going for, is variegation. You can also use the seam binding and the Rit dye, or the Dylon if you're in the UK. They're basically the same type of dyes, and just dip them into the dye like you would anything else, but you won't necessarily get the variegation that way. I like doing it this way because I like it to be variegated. Okay, so basically there you have it. You see that beautiful variegation? Okay, I am just going to take this kind of in a little pile and place it over here on my cookie sheet. Okay, and we're going to leave that alone for the moment. I think I'll go ahead and do one more. And these bottles of ink go a long way. I can't remember what the cost is on those. They seem a little bit pricey for such a little bottle, but they do go a long way. And if you're into scrapbooking and you have some of the ink pads, you know it doesn't take very much to re-ink the ink pads either. I haven't ever used any other companies' re-inkers to do this, but I'm sure it would probably work kind of in the same way. I used to be a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator eons ago, and I had to give that up when we moved to the Middle East, because at that time we weren't allowed to operate in foreign countries. And I still have all the re-inkers from way back then, and I should get them out and try them. Okay, so obviously not as much dye on this one, but let's see what happens. I may add more. So I say just try what you have, if you know, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, you know, now you know. Okay, so this one obviously I didn't use as much ink. It has a bit different look. It's kind of like with tie dyeing. You never really know what the outcome will be. And hopefully in the end you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay, so there we have a second one from that. And I'm just gonna kind of scrunch that up and lay that there on the cookie sheet. Now I'm just gonna clean this. Normally I would take this over to the sink and rinse it off, but for the sake of time, I'll just use a baby wipe. But you want to try to get as much of the ink off as possible, because you don't want it to corrupt your next color. I think I'll just dry that a bit. All right, the next one I'm going to use one called Weathered Wood. I hate wearing gloves, but in this case it's essential. And let's see what happens on this one. Otherwise, if I don't wear the gloves, I have inky fingers for days. Okay, and I think I'm going to add in faded jeans to this one. This is a rather long piece that I cut. Okay, let's see. Try to get as much of that off my gloves too. See what happens. Watch the magic happen. One thing I've noticed with blue, if you add too much water, it kind of separates the colors and you might end up with a purple hue. And this is just like the fabric. It tends to dry lighter than what it looks like when it's wet. And I think I want this to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to take and kind of fold it in half and fold it in half again and again so that it fits on my tray. I would love to have a huge tray. And I'm going to take the first one, the weathered wood, and I'm just going to drip it on. And I'm going to give it a little spritz. Okay, it's still not getting as much. Leave them on, Suzette, leave them on. It's not getting as much on the edges as I'd like, so I'm going to do the line again. And just kind of let it, like to have a little bit of maybe an ombre effect on the edges. Yes, see, I like that look. Can you see? But I fear that I have it too saturated with the water. To keep the ombre look going here. Maybe after, you know what, I think after it has dried and we go back in and we can do it once more and we'll see how it looks then. So for now I'm just going to leave it and put it over here on the cookie sheet. And I'll wipe some of this up. And we'll try a different color. Okay, I thought I had this one open, but it must be barn door that I've had open before. I've never done fired brick. So let me see if I can get this open quickly. or not. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh, while I have them off, I'll cut a few more of these. And you do want to try to, I'm back with the ums today, guys. You want to try to clean the ink off your gloves so that you don't have a color transfer. Okay, let's see what happens with fired brick. Find the end of it. I hope you guys can see this. Ooh, looks like blood. I'm just going along. I'm not worried if some spots get missed. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, I think I like that. It has what appears right now to be some great variation. We'll see when it dries. Can you see? So we're going to set that aside. And we're going to clean this one off. And we'll move on for the moment to the rickrack. Let's see what we can do with this. And I think for this one, I'm going to use one called Scattered Straw. And I'm also going to use, what's this one called? Spiced Marmalade. Because I think this would be great for Halloween. Let's see what happens. No guarantees here. And this one, I'm just gonna lay it in. It really soaks it up fast. Okay, well, let's see what happens when I give it a little bit of water. Okay, I really kind of like that. So it uses quite a lot of ink, but I like it. So let's add spiced marmalade and scattered straw. Let's do a little bit of spiced marmalade down here too. So really guys, it's just about, just like with the fabric, it's just about playing and seeing what you like. And you might have to sacrifice a piece of trim or two. It might not turn out the way you like it or the way that you'd hoped, but you're not going to know unless you try, right? At least that's how I look at it. I try to look at it as, what's it going to hurt to try? And sometimes you're happy and sometimes not so much. Let's put a little water on this, see if we can get it to spread out a bit. Do the same down here. I still see some white in there and I want the white to go away. All right, so I really like that. I think that would make some cute trim on a Halloween piece or a fall piece. What do you think? Nice variegation. So we're also going to set that over here on our cookie sheet. And oh, I'm sitting on my foot and it's gone to sleep. Okay, let's clean that one up. And I think we will try the the Dylusions. And this one is called Squeezed Orange and this one is called Pure Sunshine. Again, I am trying to plan for my fall stitching and decorating. So I think what we'll do for this one, and these tend to spray. I don't want anything to get sprayed because these tend to spray out quite a bit. Actually, you know what? I think for this one, I'm going to do it down in a little deeper container because, like I said, the spray goes a long way. All right, so I'm going to use the orange one first. Very bright. Very, very bright. Give that a few squirts. Let's see what happens when we add some Pure Sunshine. I'm not very good with the color wheel. I always have to consult my artist daughter because I never know which colors mix well or which don't until it's too late. but you might, if sometimes you end up with mud if you mix the wrong colors. So just try to keep it in the same color family, I guess. I like that. That's bright, very bright. We'll let it dry and see what happens. Okay. It might be a little too bright for my Prim self, so we'll see. But it's a nice color. So we're gonna just gather that up and place it over here. And I think what I will do, I know that the dilutions are very reactive with water. I think I will take some of the cotton twine and put down in there. To do the cotton twine with the Distress inks, you just kind of do it the same. You don't, sometimes you can't get as much variegation in it the first time around, but once it's dried, you can drop the ink onto specific places and get more variegation that way. So let's spray this in and see what happens. We have a lot of ink still in there. Let's use it up. Wanting to take a, come on, soak that up. So the thing I like about dyeing my own trims is that you can just buy white trim of any kind, you know, whether it's the string, the cording, the seam binding, and you can dye it to match your needs. You don't have to buy a blue and you don't have to buy a red. Yes, you have to buy the colors to do that, but you can mix them so that it coordinates with whatever you're going to be using it on, rather than buying, you know, if you only need a small piece of blue or a small piece of red, you don't have to buy a whole roll of red seam binding. Okay, so I think that's good. We will let that dry and see what happens. Now, what I'm gonna do, you could dry these in the oven, you could dry them with a heat gun, or you can set them outside and let them dry in the sunshine, which I think is what I'm going to do. And we will see, we'll come back and see what they look like in a little while. I will show you our results. So I'll be back shortly. All right, so I had this tray set outside on my table, and all of a sudden it looked like it was gonna start pouring down rain out of nowhere. So I brought it in, and because I'm impatient when it comes to these kind of things, I did zap it with the heat gun, and most of them are dry. I'll just show you how I do it with the heat gun. You have to keep it moving. You could do it with a hair dryer. Heat gun gets a lot hotter than a hair dryer. I don't think I would put these in the oven. I don't know. I think these are a lot more fragile than linen or Aida, and they would scorch easily, but you know, you could try it. Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly how the ones on this end are a little bit damp still. So I just keep it moving and kind of lift it up and toss it around and just let the heat do its job. I think what I'm going to do, this orange is really orange. I don't know if it's showing up on here, but it is like almost neon orange. And for me, that's a little bright. It's not as prim looking as I would like it. So I think what I'm gonna do is maybe try to tone it down a little bit. I love all the other ones. I love the Rick Rack. It's very fall looking to me. I don't know, it is lightening up quite a bit as it dries, so I might do something more with that. So basically that's how you would dry them if you weren't air drying them. If you were in no big hurry, you could just let them dry in the house. Okay, but I really like the look of, this was the darker of the greens, and you can see there's some nice variegation in there. If it wasn't as much as you had hoped for, you could go in and maybe dilute down the ink first a little bit and just dip the edges in, see how you like it that way. This is, I'll put these side by side. This is the light, this was the second kind of what the leftover of the green, the same green, and it's a bit lighter, but it turned out nice. It still has some variegation in it with those two. This is the blue. It dried quite a bit lighter than what it looked like when it, earlier, but it's still nice. It has some nice variegation in it. This is the fired brick. Again, it has some really nice variegation in it. This, like I said, it has some nice variegation, but it's a lot lighter than I had hoped that it would be. So I might add something to it. I don't know what. We'll see. These two, however, like I said, they are very, let me set these over here, very neon for my taste. So I think what I'm gonna do, if you watched my fabric dyeing video, the one just previous to this, this is a leftover from the coffee and vanilla stain, and I just added a bit more water to dilute it some, tone it down, even though it's going to come out of here a very fine mist, so it's not going to come out super dark to begin with. But I think I'm going to just give this a spray and see what happens. Keep my fingers crossed that I like what happens. Just to kind of knock the edge off of this orange some. Okay, I don't know. We'll see what, also on this one, we'll see what happens when I dry it. Oh, and I forgot to put my gloves back on. Oh my goodness, you guys, it is like pouring rain out there right now, and that was totally not in the forecast for today. Crazy, crazy weather we have here. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video now, give this a dry. I'm going to heat set all of them with my hot dry iron, placing the trim between paper. You could do it between paper towels or like 2 old kitchen towels. I'm just going to use the paper that I have. Can you hear that rain? I'm just going to use the paper that I have, put it between the papers so that I don't scorch this, because I mean it is rayon. Plus it keeps my iron cleaner. You can iron directly on these. Just remember that you need to clean your iron between uses. Okay, so let me do that and I'll be back to show you how it turned out. This is why I brought it inside. Look at the trees. It's crazy. Oh my So the rain has stopped and I have completed with the drying and the pressing of the trim, and I want to show you the results. I'm very pleased with the results. These are the two greens, that the lighter one here and the darker one. I love the way those turned out. Okay. Then we have the blue, which again, it turned out to be a little bit lighter blue than what I had hoped, but it's still very nice. And it has some mottled look to it. Then we have the fired brick red, which I think turned out very nice. You can see that one. And the rickrack, I ended up not doing anything else to it yet. Now again, it turned out quite a bit lighter than I had hoped, but it's still nice and it's still very fall looking. And then we have the neon orange. I am happy that I went ahead and sprayed it with the coffee and vanilla mix, because it did tone it down. It's still pretty bright. It's very pumpkin. But have a look at how it turned out. See what you think. Okay. So I did heat set these with the hot iron, like I mentioned. If you don't want the seam binding to be flat like this, if you want it to have that crumpled look like I have on my All Hallows Eve Pin Keep, then what you would do is just after you heat set it, you can dampen it a little bit with a mist bottle and scrunch it up and leave it to dry, and it will stay in that form. It will stay nice and crinkly. So that's just a tip to remember. A little disclaimer here. I don't know that these are 100% color fast. Even though we heat set them, I didn't rinse them and let the water run clear. I had a question from one of my subscribers, Michelle, at Gingerbread Stitches, and there's a number on there and I can never remember the number. I'm sorry, Michelle. If I had any issues with color transfer on my dyed fabrics, or if they would fade over time. I've not had any problem with mine. That being said, there's always a first. Especially, I think, maybe not so much with the coffee staining, the walnut crystal staining, or the RIT dye. With the ink, I don't know. I really don't know. I've never dyed fabric with ink. I've dyed the trim. So depending on what you're going to use it for, just be aware that you know, if it got water on it, yes, it may transfer color to your stitched piece or whatever. I don't have any of my stitch pieces in direct sunlight, which, when, you know, even DMC will tell you don't put your pieces in direct sunlight. So the whole fading issue, yes, if it's in direct sunlight, I think it would fade. Otherwise, no, I've not had any fading issues. So that's just something to keep in mind with how you use your hand-dyed items. I think any hand-dyed item will fade if it's in the direct sun, and might have a color transfer at some point. So it's just kind of like test it out, see. But I haven't had any issues, and I've been using the coffee staining and the walnut crystal ink for many years and not had any issue with color transfer. The Rit dye, I haven't used that a lot, apart from the last year or so. So I don't have a lot of experience. I can't really speak to that so much. But if you're worried about that, go ahead and run it under the water before you heat set it and see what happens. I had a look while we were waiting for this to dry. I had a look on eBay to see what the price of the Hug Snug is. I looked both on eBay and on zipperstop.com. On zipperstop.com directly, 100 yards is a bit more expensive than I remember. Of course, I bought this 4 or 5 years ago. So on zipperstop.com, it runs $9.50 plus whatever the shipping is for 100 yards. But 100 yards is a lot, you guys. I mean, a lot. On eBay, on their store name on eBay is called USNYSALE, and it runs $8.75 plus shipping. So if you're interested in getting this, of course, there's probably there are tons of sellers on eBay for various brands of the seam binding. So just shop around. And of course, you can always pick up a small pack of it at Joann's or any type of fabric store. I'm sure you can find it there, but I just opted to buy in large quantities because, like I said, I use it for more than just my cross stitching. Okay, so, and of course Rick Rack you can buy anywhere, and the other stuff, the twine, you can buy anywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is, for some lucky winner, I will put together a nice little pack of the trims that I dyed today and possibly a few more. If you would like to enter into that drawing, just leave a comment below saying that you would like to be entered. Of course, the normal rules apply. You have to be a subscriber. If you're under 18, get your parents' permission, and I will ship to anywhere in the world. So it's open to all subscribers. And I will go ahead and do the drawing on the same day that I'm doing the fabric drawing, which is, it closes on August 7th, midnight Central Standard Time, and I will do the drawing on August 8th. I think I'm gonna say you can win both. You can enter both, and if your name is drawn for both, because there's separate videos, there's separate giveaways, you can win both. So if you get feeling really lucky, go ahead and enter both. Okay, up next will be my final dyeing video for the time being, which, like I said earlier, will be the walnut crystals. And I'm also going to show you how I achieved the look that I got for my Rotted But Not Forgotted Stitch Mania piece. See if I can duplicate that. And I think I'm actually going to try to do it both on linen and on Aida, and at the same time to see exactly the difference between the two fabrics. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully the light will hold out and I will get to filming that today while this one is uploading, hopefully. Until then, thanks for watching. Thank you so much for all your kind comments, for choosing to spend time watching me play. And I hope you have a great stitchy day. Until next time, bye.